"We heard you bought an apartment. We're here to move in and make peace. My son, Ryan, and my daughter-in-law, Brooke," said as they stood at the door. After 6 months of throwing me out like an animal, now they wanted to come back. But what they saw when they stepped inside left them frozen. I'm Lori, 66 years old. I never imagined the people I loved most in this world would betray me in such a cruel way. It all began the day my husband, Robert, passed away. For 45 years, I was the proper wife, the mother who sacrificed for her family, the woman who never said no whenever they needed me. I cooked, cleaned, and handled everything without asking for anything in return. When Robert died of a heart attack 2 years ago, my world collapsed. The house where we had built our dreams became an empty, silent place. In the first months, Ryan and Brooke still came to visit. They comforted me and promised I would never be alone. "We're a family, Mom," Ryan said, as he hugged me. "We'll always be here for you." Turns out, it was all lies. Little by little, the visits became infrequent, the phone calls shorter. Whenever I called, Brooke hung up, saying she was busy. Ryan stopped answering my messages. I became a burden, a bothersome old woman messing up their perfect lives. 6 months ago was the most humiliating moment of my life. Ryan and Brooke showed up at the house with a completely different attitude. No more hugs or fake smiles. Brooke wore a sleek red dress, her hair perfectly styled, looking at me like I was a cockroach. Ryan held a stack of papers, his face colder than I had ever seen. "Mom, we need to talk," Ryan said bluntly, not even greeting me. "Brooke is pregnant and we need more space. This house is too big for one person." It was like a knife stabbed straight into my chest. "What are you saying?" I asked, trembling. Brooke smiled cruelly. "It means you have to move out. We're moving in here. You can find a smaller apartment, something that fits to your needs." "But this is my house," I stammered. "I lived here with your father. This place holds all our family's memories." Ryan replied harshly, "Memories don't pay the bills. Besides, legally, this house is mine too." Robert had added Ryan's name to the deed to avoid problems later. We never imagined our own son would throw his mother out of her home. "Don't do this to me," I begged, tears spilling over. "I'm your mother. I raised you and sacrificed my whole life for you." Brooke burst out laughing mockingly. "Enough, Lori. Stop playing the victim. You've been a burden your whole life." Robert knew it too. He just didn't have the guts to say it. That filthy line trampled on the memory of my late husband. "You have 1 week to pack," Ryan said, avoiding my eyes. "After that, we'll change the locks." 1 week? I screamed in despair. "Where am I supposed to live? I don't have enough money to rent a decent place." Brooke stroked her belly. "That's not our problem. The baby needs a stable home." That afternoon they left, and I collapsed on the living room floor of my own house. For 45 years I had given everything to that family. I gave up my dreams, my ambitions, my very self, to be the perfect wife and mother. I had stayed up all night caring for Ryan when he was sick. I worked extra shifts to help them in the early years of their marriage. I was their refuge every time they had problems, and this was how they repaid me like trash. The days that followed were the darkest of my life. Walking through that house, knowing it no longer belonged to me, tore my heart apart. Every corner screamed memories. There was the table where Robert ate breakfast and read the paper. There, the armchair, where he held me while we watched TV. In that corner, the little desk where I paid the bills month after month. I packed my belongings with trembling hands, 45 years of marriage condensed into just 6 cardboard boxes. Yellowed photographs, the dinnerware my mother left me, a few dresses I no longer wore, cookbooks full of notes. Everything that had been me suddenly felt small, easy to discard. On the day I left, they didn't even bother to show up. I set the keys on the kitchen table with a note, "Be happy." I called a taxi and carried my boxes to the only place I could afford, a rundown motel in a poor part of Seattle. The room was tiny and damp, with stained walls and a window that looked out on a trash-strewn alley. The bed creaked every time I moved. The bathroom was shared with 5 other tenants. At night there were fights and blaring music. That was my new home, my reward after a lifetime of devotion. In the first few days, I couldn't even eat. I lay there staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering where I had gone wrong. When did Ryan become so cruel? When did I raise someone capable of abandoning his own mother? I called them many times. Ryan's number rang once, twice, 5 times, then went to voicemail. "Son, it's Mom. I just want to know how you two are doing. Call me when you can." He never called back. I texted Brooke, pleading to ask about the pregnancy. "Brooke, I know this is a hard time, but I'm the baby's grandmother. Please let me know how you're doing." Hours later came the reply, "Stop bothering us. We don't want anything to do with you." The following weeks became a routine of survival. Every morning, I walked the neighborhood looking for cleaning work or elder care. At 66, nobody wanted to hire me. "You're too old," they said with a polite smile. "Try something easier." Easier? My whole life had been easy and orderly, and look where I ended up. I bought the cheapest food, discounted stale bread, a few cans of tuna, fruit on the verge of going bad. Some days I ate only 1 meal to stretch my little money. After 2 months, I'd lost around 10 pounds, clothes hanging loose, my face gaunt, no one cared. Nights were the worst. I lay listening to the city's noise, missing the quiet of my old home, missing Robert's warmth beside me. I cried silently so the other tenants wouldn't hear. One night, the woman next door banged on the wall and yelled, "Shut up, you old crybaby. Some of us need to sleep." For the first time since leaving home, I felt humiliated to the bone. Even in that awful place, I was still a nuisance. One day, walking past the mall, I saw Brooke coming out of a baby store, carrying expensive bags. Her belly had grown. She looked radiant. She climbed into a brand new silver sedan I'd never seen before. Clearly, they were spending the money that should have gone to keeping up the house. I ran after her, calling her name. "Brooke, wait!" She turned and saw me in a stained old dress, worn-out shoes, messy hair. The look of disgust on her face hurt more than any punch. "What are you doing here?" she asked, glancing around as if afraid someone might see her with me. "I just wanted to know how you two are," I panted. "How's my grandchild?" "Your child is fine, and will stay fine as long as they stay away from you." Brooke snapped the door shut and started the engine. "Please, Brooke, just let me." The car sped off, leaving me standing on the sidewalk, muttering to myself like a madwoman. People passing by looked at me with pity or annoyance. A discarded woman begging for scraps of attention from a family that no longer claimed her. That night, sitting on the rickety bed, I made a decision. I would not beg anymore. I would not humiliate myself for crumbs of affection from traitors. If they wanted to treat me as if I were dead, then I would be dead to them. But fate, as usual, had other plans. 2 weeks after that humiliating encounter, while cleaning my few belongings, I found something that would change everything. At the bottom of a box wrapped in old newspaper lay a stack of letters I hadn't seen in years. Letters Robert had written but never given me, kept in his private drawer. My hands shook as I opened the first one. My husband's familiar handwriting appeared on the yellowed page. "My beloved Lori, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. There are things I never said, secrets I kept to protect you, but now you need to know everything." I was shaking so hard I almost dropped the letter. Robert's voice seemed to echo from the other side, telling me what he'd kept hidden for decades. "Before I met you, I worked in real estate. With my savings and a few risky investments, I bought several plots of land on the outskirts of Seattle. Back then, they were dirt cheap. No one wanted them because they were far from everything. I thought maybe one day they'd be worth something. Then time passed and I forgot about them. When we got married, I didn't mention it so you wouldn't worry about money that might never exist. The paperwork is in a safe deposit box at First Puget Bank, number 1247. The key is behind our wedding photo taped down. Lori, if anything happens to me, those plots are probably worth a fortune now. The city has grown out there. Shopping centers, apartment buildings, everything I once dreamed might happen has come true." I held my breath. I dropped the letter and rushed to the wedding photo I'd kept among my few things. On the back of the frame, under the old tape, my fingers touched a small, icy key, and I understood. The game had changed. Just as the letter said, the yellowed tape on the back of the wedding frame hid a small gold key. Heart pounding, I kept reading the remaining letters. Robert had recorded everything: lot numbers, exact locations, old blueprints, even photos of empty plots taken in the 1970s. He had bought 12 parcels, all in areas I now knew were the most valuable in Seattle. "I didn't tell you because you were happy with our simple life." Another letter read, "But if one day I'm gone, I want you to know you were never left unprotected. You are the strongest woman I've ever known, stronger than you think. If anyone hurts you, remember, you have the strength to defend yourself. Signed, the husband who always admires you, Robert." I hugged the stack of letters and cried for hours. Robert, my gentleman, was still quietly taking care of me even after he died. He had anticipated the moment I would need resources. He had quietly arranged my future. The next morning, I went to First Puget Bank. My hands were sweaty as I handed the key to the teller. "Safe deposit box number 1247. The young man looked up. "May I see your ID?" I handed over my driver's license, my hands still shaking. He checked a list, then looked at me sympathetically. "Mrs. Lori, this box hasn't been opened in more than 2 years. Are you sure it's yours?" I nodded. It belonged to my husband. He passed away 2 years ago. They took me to a private room and opened the box. Inside were stacks of documents, deeds, plans, and something that took my breath away. A sealed envelope labeled, "For my warrior, when you discover who you really are." Inside was an appraisal updated 6 months before Robert died. The total value of the 12 parcels was $2,400,000. I dropped into the plastic chair, the whole room spinning. I was a millionaire. I had been living in a shabby motel, eating leftovers, humiliated by my own family, while an entire fortune was quietly waiting for me. But more important than the money was what it meant. Freedom, agency, the ability to make my own decisions for the first time in decades. That afternoon, I went back to my room and drew up a meticulous plan. No rash moves. Ryan and Brooke had played dirty. They calculated each step to bring me down. Now it was my turn, and I would do it better than they did. Over the next few days, I hired a trustworthy real estate attorney, James Alonzo, and demanded absolute discretion. "I want to sell part of the assets without anyone tracing me as the owner." He nodded. "Do you want to use a corporate entity?" "Yes. A name that can't be linked to me." We formed a shell company called Future Harbor LLC with attorney Alonzo as legal representative. Within 8 weeks, I sold the first 4 parcels, bringing in $600,000. I kept the remaining parcels as long-term investments. From that money, I began a silent metamorphosis, moved to a discreet, clean hotel in downtown Seattle, then into a salon modern haircut, color to cover the gray, manicure, pedicure, skincare. The woman in the mirror was no longer the losing Lori who walked out of a motel. She was a Lori with purpose. I bought a few new outfits, elegant yet low-key, good. Shoes but comfortable, minimalist accessories. I wanted to look like a successful woman, but not draw attention if I happened to run into someone on the street. The next step was to find Ryan and Brooke's weak points. On attorney Alonzo's advice, I hired a private investigator. I asked him to review their finances, workplaces, income, debts, what they were paying on the house that used to be mine. A week later, the results didn't surprise me. Ryan had taken out a mortgage on the house. He owed the bank $10,000 in late payments. His salary barely covered the monthly note, utilities, and Brooke's pregnancy expenses. They were living beyond their means, putting up a shiny facade over empty pockets. Brooke had quit her job to focus on the pregnancy, so they depended entirely on Ryan's income. According to the investigation, the two of them fought about money many times. Neighbors even heard them shouting at night. I pressed my lips together. Greed had pushed them to throw me out now. It would be the rope that tied them up. I didn't rush. I knew. Revenge served cold is always more effective. For a few months, I watched them from a distance, learning their routines, weaknesses, fears. I quietly tailed them when they went shopping, to the clinic, to friends' houses. One afternoon, sitting at a cafe across from my old house, I saw them arguing fiercely in the yard. Brooke pointed and yelled. Ryan held his head like he was helpless. Even without hearing the words, their body language said it all. They were in crisis. That night, I opened my laptop and started looking for a property to buy. Not just anything. I needed a clear symbol. After a few hours, I found a penthouse in the most luxurious building in the city, 42nd floor, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a terrace with a panoramic view, high-end finishes for $1,800,000. I paid 60% in cash and financed the rest with a mortgage under Future Harbor LLC. Perfect. It was the complete opposite of the failed widow image they painted of me, the exact thing I needed for the next phase. The next morning, I called the broker. I want to buy the penthouse at Summit Tower. Wonderful. When would you like to tour? No need to tour. I'll put down the deposit today and close in 45 days. The line went silent for a few seconds. Sorry. Did you say cash? That's right. The money is ready now. That afternoon, I signed the contract and became the owner of the most sought-after penthouse. When the set of keys landed in my hand, I knew it was time for a new round. I stepped into the apartment. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling glass looking out over the Seattle skyline, Italian marble, a kitchen full of the latest stainless steel appliances, a private terrace as big as the entire house I once lived in with Robert. But I wasn't there to admire, I was there to work. I hired a top interior design team, composed silent power, cream, leather sofas, glass and steel tables, contemporary art, striking greenery. Everything had to project the image of a woman who controls the game, not the humiliated widow they remembered. While the interiors were being finished, the investigator brought bad news for them. Ryan was fired from the construction company after repeated lateness and arguing with his boss. Without his paycheck, they couldn't make the mortgage my house, where they planned to raise their child after kicking their mother out. Brooke, 7 months pregnant, was desperately looking for work. She went back to her old firm, but the position had been filled. I saw her walk out of the building in tears, holding her belly, panic all over her face. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. In the afternoon, I sat on the penthouse balcony as the phone rang. Attorney Alonzo. Hot tip, Mrs. Laurie. The bank has started foreclosure proceedings on the house where your son is living. They've missed 3 payments. How much time before they lose the house? By law, about 2 months if they don't cure. Want me to dig deeper? Yes, and one more thing, buy that mortgage. I want to become their creditor. He hesitated a beat. Unusual but technically feasible. I'm certain. 2 weeks later, through Future Harbor LLC, I officially became the new creditor on the old house. From now on, Ryan and Brooke owed my Future Harbor LLC the entire remaining mortgage balance, and they were currently $10,000 past due. Of course, they had no idea. I didn't show my hand yet. I wanted them to taste the same despair I once did. I hired a collections firm to apply pressure. Daily calls, warning letters, home visits, all legal but firm enough to keep them up at night. At the same time, I leaked a few comments around the neighborhood in places like that. News travels fast. Soon, everyone knew Ryan and Brooke's perfect family was going broke. The investigator reported, Brooke had to sell the new car for cash. One day, I saw her standing at the bus stop in a wrinkled green maternity dress, carrying grocery bags from the cheapest market in the area. I sipped my tea as the cold wind threaded through the high balcony railing. The board had turned, and this time, I was the one making the move. The contrast was stark. Brooke was no longer the arrogant woman who had thrown me out of my own home. Ryan was driving a taxi at night to make ends meet. One night, I tailed him and saw him parked on a dangerous corner, waiting for fares with a defeated face. The one who called me a burden now looked like he was carrying the whole world on his back. What satisfied me most, they argued constantly. Neighbors said their shouting rang out into the street at night. Brooke blamed Ryan for losing his job. Ryan yelled back that she should be working instead of complaining all day. Your mother was right. You're useless and will never get better. That line from Brooke, according to Mrs. Benita, my former neighbor, made me realize. Turns out Brooke was closer to my former mother-in-law than I thought, and clearly that woman had a very clear assessment of her own son. It was time for the next strike. I bought the commercial debt tied to the office building where the construction company that fired Ryan was headquartered, becoming a major creditor of the building's owner. It wasn't hard. The previous owner was financially exhausted and wanted to sell fast. I paid cash and became the new landlady. After that, through Future Harbor LLC, I offered a series of lucrative construction contracts to competitors, the bids that would otherwise have gone to Ryan's former company. Slowly, methodically, I cut off every chance for him to return to the industry with a stable job. I signed a 10-year master lease with the building where Brooke used to work, with an option to buy. When she tried to come back and beg for her position, what awaited was a new management board and new policies conveniently not favorable to employees who had resigned abruptly like her. Everything was going according to plan. Only the reveal was missing. One evening, while dining alone in the Summit Tower penthouse, I decided to plant a seed of doubt so they would come to me. I hired an actor to play Robert's old friend. The assignment was clear: run into Ryan in public and blurt out, "I heard Lori lives in a penthouse now. How does she have the money for that?" The plan ran like clockwork. The actor met Ryan at a gas station and delivered the exact lines. That night, Ryan came home with 1,000 questions, clearly starting to suspect he had judged his mother wrong. "No way. Mom doesn't have the money for a penthouse," he told Brooke, according to reports from my network. But the seed of doubt had sprouted. A few days later, I saw them digging for information about me, asking neighbors, calling old acquaintances, even hiring someone to track down where I lived. When they confirmed I truly lived in one of the most expensive buildings in Seattle, Brooke practically hid at home for 3 days to process the information. Ryan was lost, confused, as if the whole world had flipped upside down, and that's exactly what had happened. The woman they tossed out like trash was living a life better than they could ever dream of. The burden they threw out now held power and resources far beyond what they could gather in a lifetime. And the beautiful thing, they didn't know that the financial nightmare had been designed by the very woman they betrayed. Now it was just a matter of waiting. I knew they would come. Desperation, curiosity, and greed would lead them straight to my door. And the call came exactly as predicted. On Tuesday morning, I was having breakfast on the balcony, watching the city wake beneath my feet, when the phone rang with a number I recognized instantly: Ryan. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. I had to sound surprised, as if I hadn't been expecting this call for weeks. "Hello, Mom. It's me, Ryan." His voice sounded different, smaller, shakier, none of the swagger from the day he threw me out. "Ryan, how did you get my number?" I asked, feigning confusion. "Finding you wasn't easy. Mom, we need to talk." "Oh, now you need to talk. Funny. A few months ago you said I was a burden and wanted nothing to do with me." The line went silent, only his heavy breathing. "Mom, things are a mess. Brooke is 8 months pregnant, and I lost my job. We heard that you have a penthouse." Finally, the real reason. Not family love, not genuine remorse, just financial need dressed up as reconciliation. "A penthouse? Who told you that?" "A friend of Dad's said he saw you. When I left the old house, I had nothing." "Things change, son. The person you look down on most might be the one full of surprises. Could you tell us what happened? Brooke and I are really struggling. Maybe we could come visit you and talk it out?" The brazenness made me pause. After humiliating me, throwing me out, ignoring every call for months now, they wanted to talk because they knew I had money. "Come visit, Mom. Are you sure? The last time we met, you called me a bitter old woman." "Mom, we were so stressed then. We didn't mean it." Lies. They meant every cutting word that day. "All right," I said. "Tomorrow afternoon you two can come, but one condition: no lying. If you come here, you tell the whole truth about what you did." "Yes, Mom. I promise." Another empty promise, but this time every card was in my hand. I gave them the address and told them to come up to the 42nd floor. After hanging up, I sat on the balcony and scripted every detail. The message had to be crystal clear. The woman once looked down on now held all the power. I hired a catering service to prepare an elegant lunch. Not flashy, but refined enough to show my life had completely changed. Salmon, gourmet salads, imported wine, delicate desserts, the very kind of spread Brooke dreamed of hosting but could never afford. I checked every corner of the interior. Fresh flowers in each room, cushions perfectly placed, art lit just right. Every detail said, I had won while they were sinking. Most important was my appearance. I went to the city's most upscale salon, manicure, pedicure, facial, hairstyling. I bought a new beige dress, elegant, not showy. Designer shoes, minimalist but expensive jewelry. In the mirror was someone entirely different from the woman who once left that house in tears. The night before the meeting, I called attorney Alonzo. They're coming tomorrow. I want the mortgage file and the properties I bought around their area ready. Do you plan to reveal that you're their creditor? Not yet. I want to gauge their level of desperation first. But leave all the paperwork out on the table. That night I didn't lose sleep from worry, but from anticipation. I had imagined this moment for months when they would fully grasp the price of betrayal. The next morning, I woke early to do one last sweep of the penthouse. Soft classical music, a few investment books placed artfully on the glass table, the laptop open to a portfolio chart. At exactly 2 p.m., the front desk called, Mrs. Lori, there's a couple here claiming to be your son and daughter-in-law. Send them up. I stood before the living room's glass wall, my back to the door. Looking out over the city, stretching to infinity, I wanted the first thing they saw to be the scale of this view. The private elevator opened, slow, hesitant steps on the marble floor. The doorbell. Come in, it's unlocked, I said without turning around. They stepped in and froze. Silence pressed down. I could feel their shock, their bewilderment, their confusion. Then I turned. Ryan stood on the threshold, mouth open, eyes wandering around the room like he'd landed on another planet wearing old jeans and a wrinkled shirt. Brooke kept a hand on her pregnant belly, her eyes glued to the glass wall looking down over Seattle, the city where now I was the one standing above. Ryan looked noticeably worn out. Deep, dark circles, several days of stubble. He was no longer the arrogant man who had thrown me out, just a shattered shadow of himself. Brooke stood beside him, heavily pregnant, her face stunned. The yellow maternity dress looked cheap and faded, nothing like the elegant woman from before. Her shoes were worn down, her hair frizzy, her skin the gray pallor of someone crushed by stress. Hello, Ryan. Hello, Brooke. I kept my voice calm. Welcome to my home. Mom, how is this possible? Ryan's voice faltered, his eyes still roaming over the art, the designer furniture, the luxurious finishes. How is it possible, all of this apartment, this life? Brooke stayed silent, but I saw tears rising. Not tears of joy at seeing me again, tears of realizing what they had lost when they treated me like trash. Sit down. I gestured lightly to the Italian leather sofa. We have a lot to discuss. They sat like robots, still dazed. The contrast was perfect. Them broken and desperate sitting in my palace, something they would never reach. Just moments earlier, Brooke had raised her voice. We heard you bought a penthouse. We're here to move in and make peace. But faced with reality, they went rigid. Can I get you something? I asked with the icy courtesy of a perfect hostess. French mineral water, a South American wine I just picked, or specialty whole bean coffee. I deliberately named expensive things so they could hear, with their own ears, my current standard of living. Water. Water is fine, Brooke whispered, wiping her tears. Ryan couldn't speak, still dazed like he'd seen a ghost. I stepped into the stainless steel kitchen and poured water into crystal glasses. Meanwhile, they whispered, "How did she get all this?" "I don't know. When she left the house, she couldn't even afford a decent hotel." "Ryan, did you know your dad had money saved?" "No. Dad never said a word. We lived on his government paycheck. That's it." I brought the drinks back, sat in the single chair opposite them. Crossing my legs, posture matters. I had the single seat, in control. They huddled together on one sofa, small and uneasy. "All right," I said slowly. "You said you wanted to talk. I'm listening." Ryan cleared his throat, trying to regain some composure. "Mom, first we're sorry for how we treated you. We were so stressed. Pregnancy, expenses." "Stressed?" I cut in, soft but sharp. "Is that your reason for throwing your own mother out of her home after 45 years of marriage?" "Not a reason, but the truth. Brooke's hormones from pregnancy. I had pressure at work. Ryan, I used the same tone I once used to teach a 5-year-old. Don't lie. You didn't kick me out because you were stressed. You kicked me out because you thought I was a useless old woman with nothing you could exploit." Brooke finally spoke, her voice cracked. "Lori, I didn't mean those awful things I said. I was scared because of the baby, the money, everything." "Which awful things, Brooke? Be specific." "I remember every word." She went even paler. "I said you were a burden. That Robert knew it too, but didn't have the courage to say it. That my child needed a stable home, not the complaints of a bitter old woman." "Good, at least now you're honest." I stood, walked to the glass wall, and turned my back. In the reflection, the two of them, exhausted, sat at the edge of the sofa like they were waiting to be called in a courtroom. "You know what's most interesting?" I didn't look back. "You miscalculated. You thought you knew my whole story, that you knew exactly the worth of Lori, a widow. Turns out you never knew who I am." "Mom, can you explain?" "Where did the money come from?" Ryan asked. "Not so fast." I turned and met his eyes. "Do you want to know because you truly want to understand, or to calculate how much you can squeeze out now that you found out your mother is rich?" "No, that's not it." "Then why wait 6 months to call? Why not look for me when I was living in a shabby motel, eating 1 meal a day, lying on a bed full of bedbugs?" Ryan lowered his head. He had no answer. "I'll tell you a story," I said, circling behind them as I spoke. 2 years ago, when your Malin story, father died, I was exactly the woman you thought. A widow with no resources, dependent on family, no options. I was vulnerable, alone, and needed love. I stopped in front of Brooke. But when you two betrayed me, threw me out like garbage, everything changed. I had to learn to be a different kind of woman without Robert, without you, without anyone. I discovered this. Robert, the husband I loved, had protected me all my life in ways I never knew. He invested, bought real estate, laid out a plan for my future without my knowing. Ryan snapped his head up. "Dad had money saved? Your father left a fortune, Ryan, a fortune that now belongs to me. And you could have shared in it if you were the kind of people who deserved an inheritance." Brooke burst into tears. "Lori, we didn't know. If we'd known Robert left money, then you would have behaved differently, shown me respect, only because I had money." "Is that what you mean, Brooke?" I don't know. I'm so confused. Let me make it clear. You treated me badly because you thought there would be no consequences. You kicked me out because you assumed I had no power to defend myself. You humiliated me because you believed I was weak. I sat down again, this time closer. But it turns out you were wrong about everything. Ryan mustered the courage to ask the question that had been burning him up. Mom, how much money do you have? I smiled without warmth. Do you really want to know? I tilted my head. I have enough to buy the building you live in. In fact, if I feel like it, I can buy the entire block. They went silent. I also have enough to send Brooke's child to any top university or to ensure they don't receive a single cent from me. I have the power to change your lives for the better or wipe them clean. Brooke held her belly as if the baby could hear it. And you know what else I have, Ryan? A network I've built over months. I know the directors of the biggest construction companies in the city. I know the heads of HR, the people who decide who gets a job and who doesn't. Ryan turned pale. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying, the power you thought you once had over me now, I have over you. And I'm still considering what to do with it. I stood and walked toward the kitchen, while I think, why don't you tell me about your current finances? Rumors. Who told you? Ryan forced out. In this city, Ryan, when you have money and connections, information comes to you. I know you lost your job. I know Brooke sold the car. I know you're behind on the mortgage. Brooke collapsed inward. We don't know what to do. The baby is due in a month. No money. They're about to foreclose. We have nowhere to go. Sounds grim, I said evenly. You must feel very vulnerable, very desperate, very alone. I let them absorb every word, exactly the feeling I had when they threw me out. Silence thickened. Brooke sobbed, clutching her belly. Ryan held his head, finally grasping the scale of what they'd done and the price ahead. I stood by the glass wall, watching them slowly fall apart. Just as I had planned, but a small part of me was surprised by how much I was enjoying it. Please, Brooke hiccuped. Lori, please. We know we hurt you. We know we were awful. But the baby, your grandchild, did nothing wrong. There it was, the last resort, using the child as an emotional shield, predictable but effective. For a moment, I felt my heart soften. My grandchild? I asked softly. What makes you sure I want anything to do with them? After all, you're the one who said the baby needs a stable home, not the complaints of a bitter old woman. I was wrong. I panicked and said terrible things. Now I understand. The baby needs their grandmother. The baby needs to know. You're an extraordinary woman. Extraordinary? I arched a brow. Interesting. 6 months ago, I was just a useless burden. Ryan looked up. Mom, we know we don't deserve forgiveness. We were cruel and unfair to you, but we're desperate. We truly don't know what to do. I'm listening, I said, wanting to see how far he was willing to humble himself. I've been out of work for 2 months. I've applied everywhere, but no one hires me. It's like I'm blacklisted. Brooke has tried to find work, but no one wants to hire a woman 8 months pregnant. We're 3 payments behind on the mortgage. The bank sent a foreclosure notice. In 2 weeks, they'll take the house. The house that used to be mine, I added gently. Ryan swallowed. Yes, the house that used to be yours. Where we were happy. When we were still a family. When we were, I repeated. So we're not now? I don't know what we are anymore. Mom. I slid my chair closer to the glass table opposite them, close enough to see every line of despair on their faces. Let me be clear about what we are. Strangers. You made that true when you decided I had no value, but there's something more important. You need something from me, and I have the power to give it or not. That is our current family relationship. What do you want from us?" Ryan's voice was hoarse. "Wrong question. The right one is, what are you willing to trade to get my help?" They looked at each other confused. "In short, when you thought I had nothing, you treated me like trash. Now that you've discovered I have value, you come asking for help. So what exactly are you putting on the table?" "We're your family, your son and daughter-in-law," Brooke whispered. "No," I said firmly. "You lost the right to play the family card the day you threw me out. If you want my help, you have to earn it." "How do we earn it?" Ryan asked. I stood and slowly circled them like a lawyer interrogating witnesses. "From now on, you're no longer relatives who made a mistake. You're debtors who betrayed your creditor. That difference matters." "What do we have to do to prove we understand?" Ryan pressed. "Tomorrow, before you come here, you will visit everyone who was there the day you threw me out. Tell the exact truth and apologize on my behalf. Say, 'We're here to apologize to Lori because we treated her unfairly, and we want the whole neighborhood to know we admit we were wrong.'" Ryan swallowed. "Everyone?" "Everyone, especially the neighbors. I want the entire block to know the new owner of this area admits to a grave misjudgment." I smiled for the first time during the meeting. "Oh, and I didn't mention this. I've bought 4 units on the block where you live. That area is rising fast, smart investment, which means, from now on, your entire neighborhood is my tenants. And everyone will know why you lost your house." Brooke held her belly as a contraction rolled through. "Are you okay?" My maternal instinct flicked on. I'm just stressed. The baby kicks hard when I'm anxious." For the first time all evening, my expression softened. "No matter what you decide, when it's time to give birth, I'll be there if you need me. The baby is my grandchild. I won't take my anger out on someone innocent." Ryan covered his face. "Mom, how did our family end up like this?" "Because you chose money over love. Because you thought you could treat someone badly without paying a price. Is there any way to fix it? Possibly, but fixing it takes time, real effort, and real change in who you are." I sat facing them again. "You have until tomorrow night. Either accept all my conditions or face the consequences on your own. If we accept, will things go back to the way they were? Never, but we might build something new based on respect, not on assumptions about who has the power over whom." They stood slowly. Brooke needed Ryan's support. "Thank you for giving us a chance," she murmured. "Don't thank me yet. Prove you deserve it." I walked them to the penthouse door. "One more thing. When you come back tomorrow, bring a handwritten letter, each explaining what you learned from this and how you plan to change. Handwriting carries weight. I need to see that you understand the gravity." They left in silence, carrying the weight of everything they'd just learned. I closed the door and stood in the room, luxury all around, but with a strange hollow echo in my chest. I had won. I had power. I had the justice I sought. But for the first time in months, I asked myself whether victory was as sweet as I'd imagined. That night was the longest. I sat on the balcony, watching Seattle's lights flicker like falling stars, replaying every word I'd said. For the first time since launching my response plan, I felt a flicker of doubt. Did I go too far? Is this justice or cruelty wearing justice's mask? But every time I softened, I remembered Brooke's exact words. "The baby needs a stable home, not the complaints of a bitter old woman." I remembered the cruel smile when they pushed me out the door. I remembered the months of hunger and humiliation. No, I didn't go too far. I went exactly where I needed to go. The next morning, reports from my network in that neighborhood poured in. Ryan and Brooke started knocking on doors at dawn, publicly apologizing as I demanded. Mrs. Benita, my former neighbor, called me. Lori, you wouldn't believe it. Your son and daughter-in-law came to my house, crying and apologizing on your behalf. He told me everything. How they kicked you out. How badly they treated you. How they realized that greed made them lose the best. Mother, what did I say? I said I always knew they were ungrateful. A woman like you who sacrificed her whole life deserves respect, not betrayal. I told them to learn the lesson. Similar messages came all day. At every house, Ryan and Brooke retold the story, publicly apologizing for treating me unfairly. By noon, the entire block knew the truth and knew who was right. By afternoon, I prepared for the final meeting, a gray pantsuit, elegant yet authoritative. This was not a casual family get-together, but a negotiation where I held all the power. I had ready the debt cancellation papers, an employment contract for Ryan, a list of apartments they could move into, and the terms for the new family agreement. Right on time, the bell rang. They looked different, smaller, humbler, and more genuine than I had ever seen. Good evening, I said neutrally. Did you bring everything I asked for? Yes. Ryan handed me the handwritten letter. We went to apologize to every house and we wrote the letters. They sat on the edge of the sofa posture of people waiting for instructions, no longer those who came to demand. I opened Ryan's letter first. Dear Mom, these past days I've looked hard at the man I've become, and I'm ashamed. I kicked you out of your own house because I thought I had the right. I treated you like trash because I thought you had no value beyond what you could give me. I acted like a selfish child, not the man you raised with all your love. I've learned that respect isn't based on the benefits you get, but on recognizing the other person's human dignity. I promise to be a better father to my son than I was a son to you. Ryan. Short, but honest. I could feel the words came from the heart, not just from desperation. I opened Brooke's letter. Dear Lori, I have no excuse. I used words as weapons to hurt you. During the months my life fell apart, I finally understood what it means to be fragile, afraid, dependent on others' kindness, exactly what you felt when we threw you out, except you had done nothing to deserve it. I want my son to grow up knowing his grandmother only if you choose to forgive. Not because I have any right to demand it, but because I hope to be worthy of that chance. Brooke. I set both letters down and was silent for a long moment. All right, I said. You've apologized publicly, and the letters show some understanding. Are you ready to hear the final terms? I picked up the file. Point 1. Wipe out the entire $10,000 of past due mortgage. The house is debt-free. They were stunned. Are really? Real. But don't celebrate yet. There are conditions. What conditions? The house will be placed in a trust for my grandchild. You two can live there until they turn 18. After that, they decide the property's fate. Understood. Point 2. Ryan starts work this coming Monday at Meridian Construction, a respected firm in Seattle. Starting salary, $5,000 a month. That's more than double my old salary. That's the value of an employee who's on time, works decently, plus a recommendation that carries real weight. I looked Ryan straight in the eye. Point 3. During the first year, I am your silent supervisor. One single late arrival, one act of swaggering arrogance, one flash of the conceit you showed your mother, and you're fired on the spot, with no chance at any major construction company in this city. Clear? Clear, Ryan swallowed. Point 4. Brooke will receive full prenatal care at a top clinic. On my dime. Brooke burst into tears this time with relief. Point 5. When my grandchild is born, I will be there if you want, and I have the right to regular visits. Not as a favor you grant, but as a right I've earned as the grandmother. Yes, of course, they both said at once. I close the file, my voice steel steady. And remember this well, if you reject the terms or try to haggle manipulate, I'll trigger foreclosure immediately. You'll leave the house with nothing. And I'll make sure Ryan can't get a job in this industry in Seattle, Ryan whispered. We understand. Good. I need to be sure you truly understand. I took a slow breath, looking at them. Now sit down, sign here, and start over the right way. Point 6. From now on, every major family decision moving, jobs, the child's education, must be discussed with me first. Brooke hesitated. Isn't that a bit controlling? From the day you proved you didn't know how to put everyone's well-being first, you lost absolute autonomy in this family. Ryan nodded. You're right, Mom. Point 7, and the final point. Once a month for the next 5 years, you two will come to have dinner with me, not to pretend we're a normal family, but to keep communication open, and for me to confirm you're keeping your end of the deal. I stepped to the glass wall one last time. These terms are non-negotiable. Either accept them all or reject them all. No halfway. We accept, they said together. Sure? Once you sign, there's no going back. Absolutely, Ryan confirmed. We spent nearly an hour signing papers, reviewing details, fixing timelines. When it was done, for the first time in months, the three of us sat in the same room without open hostility. Brooke slipped the documents into her bag, then hesitated. May I ask something? I'm listening. Will there ever be a day when you truly forgive us? Or will we always just be an obligation in your life? The question made me pause. For months I'd planned every step up to today, but I'd never truly thought about the after. Honestly, Brooke, I don't know yet. Forgiveness can't be put on a schedule. It grows over time, if actions prove it's deserved. If we truly work to change, maybe, over time, we can build something new. Not the old relationship because it died the day you threw me out, but something else, more honest, better. For the first time, I smiled with genuine warmth. Maybe. Ask me again in 5 years. That night, when they left, I stood alone in the penthouse, still the marble walls and the Seattle sky beyond, but inside was a feeling I hadn't known in a long time. Peace. I didn't get back the old family, that family is gone forever, but I had something more precious: respect, candor, and the possibility of a future built on solid ground instead of fragile illusions. A few months later, when my grandchild was born, I was there, and when the baby was placed in my arms for the first time, I understood. It was all worth it, not for revenge, but for the chance to begin again. When the door closed, Lori didn't choose payback for the sake of it. She chose boundaries, then chose compassion. Today's story reminds us, family isn't measured by blood or promises, but by respect, honesty, and responsibility. Forgiveness doesn't erase wrongs overnight. It's a long road where each of us must shoulder our part of the change. Justice helps us stand. Compassion helps us move forward, and only together do wounds get the chance to heal. What do you think? If you were Lori, what conditions would you set to protect your heart while still leaving the door open for a new beginning? How should boundaries and love be balanced in a family that's been hurt? Share your perspective in the comments. Your story might help someone find their way home. If these stories resonate with you, stay with the channel so we can keep listening, learning, and growing together through each next chapter. See you in the next episode.